I'm aware that many of you have expressed a desire for online counseling, and to that effect, we have a sponsor who will help you and assist you in that respect. So if you will, go beneath the video, you'll find a link to our online counseling sponsor. They have a whole team of counselors that can help you. Practice self-care, get the help that you need. I'm going to make the assumption that you've heard phrases like, let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. Or another one that runs parallel to that, say what you mean and mean what you say. And when we use phrases like that, they appeal to straightforward talk. But even more so than that, it appeals to having a lack of guile or a lack of pretense in the way that you engage with others. And frankly, that's a really good way to go. Now, you know that there are some people who are less than straightforward in the way that they engage with you. There are some people that are just openly known as being liars and deceivers. They can be openly aggressive when you disagree with them. They can be pushy and forceful and constantly argumentative and speaking in one-up kind of terms. And these are individuals, we kind of call them blowhards or, individuals who are just constantly stirring up trouble. They don't leave a whole lot to the imagination. But then there's a certain category of individuals that they can have a commitment to being difficult and not straightforward themselves, but they're much more stealth in the way that they go about it. Years ago, I actually coined a term that I just use for myself. I refer to some people as dishonest, honest people. And what I meant by that is there are some people, they don't necessarily tell lies. That's the honest part. But at the same time, there's just not a real sense of openness and straightforwardness. They're not very honest, they're not very honest about the things that they have behind door number 3 over here. Now, in a little bit of a different term, I would refer to this as passive dishonesty. And frankly, passive dishonesty is every bit as insidious as open lying, and in fact, it may be even more difficult simply because the passivity is part of the deception. It's part of the technique, if you will. Now, there are many or multiple indicators that might indicate that an individual is, in fact, going in that direction of passive dishonesty. For example, there are times when an individual might allow you to assume that they agree with you when, in fact, they don't. Or it could be that they can be the kind of person that will put on a very friendly front when in fact behind the scenes they feel absolute contempt towards some individuals, and you only find out about that much later on. It could be that these are individuals who will pay you nice compliments, and yet later on you learn, well, they were only being complimentary so that they could find their inroad and have an extra measure of influence over you. These are individuals who actually like to appear to be a very pleasing kind of a person, and yet behind the scenes they feel a lot of displeasure toward you. Now, there are other ways that people can go into this passive dishonesty. Sometimes they'll confront you with seemingly innocent questions. Something like, hey, did you talk to this person over here at work about the plans? Now, what they're really meaning is, hey, look, I can't stand the way that you're handling this and you're not managing this very well. And so I've got to get you to just do things a little bit better. But instead of just speaking straight, hey, did you do anything about these plans? They already know the answer, but they just don't want to get into what seems to be a confrontation. Or it might be that they'll say something like in a parenting situation, or co-parenting, well, I wonder why the kids just didn't seem to take care of the issues that I thought they were supposed to do. When in fact, it's your way of saying, there you go again, you let me down. But they couch their words in ways that make it sound as if they're curious or asking innocent questions when in fact they're trying to make a point to make you look foolish. Or, by the way, we have a term for that too. It's called gaslighting. Or it may be that that they'll deflect when they're asked questions. You may say something to that person. It's like, hey, things didn't seem to go the way that I wanted. Or I thought you had told me such and such and it didn't really come through. What's that all about? And they may just say something like, you're just going to have to ask somebody else. Now, they're not lying, when in fact it's like, yeah, I really did screw up, but they don't want to say that. So they just kind of pass the buck elsewhere. Or it may be that these are individuals who try to look really good in public, but behind the scenes they have terrible habits and dispositions. And this all comes into the category of a false public persona or blame shifting. Sometimes these people who have passive dishonesty will draw attention to someone else's mistakes as a way of covering up their own. For example, let's suppose they really did mess up on a project and we're talking about how that thing didn't go very well, and they'll say something like, you just can't count on Jane. I told her such and such, and she just didn't follow through on it. I don't know what's going on with her. And they'll do the blame shifting thing over there towards her. Or it may be that they'll be the kind of people that will admit what is seen that might be wrong, but then that's it. They won't elaborate. Let's suppose that same person has really messed up or didn't follow through, or they really disappointed. And it's like, well, I know that didn't really go the way you wanted. I admit that. Now, in the meantime, it may not be that they'll say, well, I actually had these secret plans over here that I wanted to give higher priority to, or I never agreed or wanted to agree with what you were asking me about in the first place. And so they'll just kind of do the cover-up kind of a thing. And or it could be that they actually have many other kind of things that they just don't want you to know about that are part of their ineptitude or their lack of coordination. But they don't admit those kind of things. Only if you catch me will they say anything, and even then it's going to be minimalist. These individuals have very low self-disclosure. They tend not to acknowledge a history of difficulty or mistakes. It's like none of your business. And I understand that you want to have a certain discernment when you talk about some of your history of mistakes, but these folks, it's like, no, they take it all the way to that far extreme. In other words, they let people assume that the public persona that they present is in fact the real deal, when in fact behind the scenes there's a troubled soul that's there. Now, let's acknowledge that as people have this passive dishonesty, or the dishonest, honest person, as I mentioned, there are all sorts of things cooking underneath the surface there. First and foremost, these people are committed to high levels of control and low levels of vulnerability. And then what we can see is that's actually the hallmark of passive aggressive behavior. They want to be in control, they want to make their point, but they don't want to allow themselves to have any kind of accountability toward other individuals. This passive dishonesty also implies an ultimate commitment to their own arrogance. It's like, I am not about to associate myself with the rest of humanity. I don't want to be known as human, good grief, and letting people see my flaws and weaknesses or my struggles. You're not about to do that. And again, I realize there's a place for discernment there, but these people just take it to the far extreme. Or in addition, beneath the surface, these passively dishonest people have very low capacity for trust. That somewhere along the line, they must have been burned or they must have been hurt badly. And rather than dealing with that so that it doesn't impact many other relationships, they carry that hurt with them for a long, long time, to the extent that it just it becomes the gift that keeps on giving in a not such a good way. They are fear driven in their approach toward relationships. It's like, I am threatened by the possibility that I could be rejected if people know the real me. And they have a very low appreciation for heart connection. Now, again, I'm going to reiterate, obviously, you want to have a certain amount of discernment before you just reveal anything and everything about yourself, because I know that some of you have been through some very difficult relationships that did not end well at all, so I get that part. But I'm talking about an ongoing lifestyle where people are going to let you assume that they're one thing, when in fact behind the scenes there's something else. And once you begin realizing that these patterns that I just mentioned seem to just keep happening over and over, two things. Number one, it's a matter of realizing, okay, if all you're looking for is superficiality or function or transactions, I get it, and I'm not going to have expectations beyond just that. But then a second thought is, but in the meantime, I can't really afford to let that person be on my inner circle. I want to reserve my good investment of relationships into people that are on Team Healthy, that know what to do with the good things that I have to offer. So know what you're dealing with. And rather than trying to argue that person into some form of honesty that isn't going to be there, it's like, okay, I'm on to you. And if you're in the business of not admitting things, I'm in the business of being healthy, and I'm going to individuate. I'm going to be my own separate person. You may be whatever you need to be. I'm staying over here on Team Healthy. Now, I hope videos such as this give you some good food for thought and let you realize there are all sorts of patterns out there that you have to be aware of as you're trying to live into that healthy direction. If you've not already subscribed to our Dr. Les Carter channel here, I would encourage you to do so. You know, we already have the Surviving Narcissism channel as well. We'd love to have you along on this one as well, where we address different kind of issues. If you have a need for counseling, and I know many of you would like to have somebody that you can talk with to unpack these kind of issues, I would encourage you, if there's someone in your immediate area, to seek that out. If you would prefer, we have a link below that would take you to online counseling, where there's a whole team of professionals that are there ready to assist, and you can choose someone that could help you in that respect. In addition, keep your eye out for our courses, my free to be course, and then I have a new one coming along called This Is Me, about establishing boundaries with controllers. And then we have our webinars that come along periodically. We have my books like When Pleasing You Is Killing Me, The Anger Trap. There's a lot of resources below, and avail yourself of that as you will. All right, unfortunately, just because somebody wants to give the appearance of being honest doesn't necessarily mean that it's all the way there. It takes time for these things to be revealed, but as it is, I hope that you can adjust your expectations. And in addition, I'm hoping it can just give you that much more resolve that says, I want to be someone that does stand for the things that are right and good. When you're in my presence, what you see is what you get.